Good afternoon, and I'd like to welcome everyone to our monthly webinar. This month's webinar is Supporting Schools and Inspiring Families to Improve Children's Nutrition and Wellness with Dan Marek and the Whole Kids Foundation. My name is Peter Cribb, and I'm the National Director for the CATCH program with the Michael and Susan Dell Center for Healthy Living at the University of Texas School of Public Health and the Austin Regional Campus. We're very excited about today's webinar, but before we get started, I'd just like to take care of a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, our webinar today is being recorded and an archive will be made available at the catchusa.org website, along with a PDF of the presentation slides. During today's webinar, we encourage you to type in questions and comments via the questions box, which you can access through the control panel on your screen. You can type in your question at any time, but to keep us on schedule, we'll try to hold off answering them until the Q&A portion at the end of the presentation. Next, I'd like to share just a little bit about the Michael and Susan Dell Center for Healthy Living. We're an international leader in conducting research and providing programs that promote healthy living for children, their families and communities. Our work fosters improved health behaviours among the youth, influences policy and environmental change to support healthy living, and advances professional education and community service. Our vision is healthy children in a healthy world. You can find out more about our centre and our work in school health on our website, www.msdcentre.org. Now, I'm delighted to introduce our special guest for today, Dan Marek. Dan is a school programs educator for the Whole Kids Foundation. Prior to this position, he was a healthy eating specialist at their Flagship store here in Austin, Texas. He is very passionate about his community involvement, and he donates his time across the country as an advocate for healthy food options that are both affordable and flavorful. Today, Dan is going to share his work in supporting schools and inspiring families to improve children's nutrition and wellness. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you very much. So I just wanted to go into a little bit about Whole Kids Foundation to start off and give a little bit of an explanation of what we do. So Whole Kids Foundation was started in 2011. And we basically started out by really looking at nutrition for kids and how we could improve upon that. Whole Kids Foundation is actually funded and it was actually proposed by Whole Foods Market. And Whole Foods Market is they basically pay for our administration fees, and it's up to us to raise our fees basically to support our programs afterward as well. So we have a great support in Whole Foods Market, but we also have the great ability to also not have to only work with Whole Foods Market, so we can work with all kinds of different organizations, and it's really looking at that, inspiring those families and really looking towards improving children's nutrition that really drives what we do. So I'm going to go over a couple of the different things that we actually do through Whole Kids Foundation, and my favorite one being the Healthy Teachers Program, which is actually my program that I travel around quite a bit to help with. But I wanted to give you a little bit of background on some of the other things we do. So a lot of them through CATCH you should be pretty familiar with. You know, we have some big problems that have been coming up over the years. You know, a lot of that is the way that we are eating and the way that children's health has kind of changed because of that, because we're actually looking at kids that are eating 31% more processed foods and more calories today than they were 40 years ago. Which is, you know, when you kind of think about it, one of my most common sayings is eat the way your great-great-grandparents ate, minus the lard. So that's kind of like looking at that in that same aspect, is how do we return to the roots of our food, literally. So getting rid of some of that processed food is kind of one of those first steps. You know, at this current state, the last figure that I saw was 20% of kids are actually obese as well. And a lot of people think, wow, I thought I've heard numbers that was actually higher than that. It's actually 40% of them are overweight, 20% of them are obese. So different qualifier there, which is a pretty big difference. The scariest one that I've seen is that it's actually 35% of kids, and stroke has increased in 35% of kids too. So, and this is the first generation that we're actually going to be living where the kids won't have as long of a lifespan as us. So this is really something we needed to start addressing right away and kind of looking at ways to improve those children's health. The first way that we actually started looking at this was looking at salad bars. So when we first started Whole Kids Foundation, we started looking at ways to be able to get better nutrition into schools. And the best way we saw that happening was in salad bars. And by giving kids access to salad bars, they're actually eating 3 times the amount of fruit or vegetable per day, which is pretty amazing. When we look back on this, we're like, well, of course, this isn't too shocking. You know, if you're going to go into a grocery store and go to a salad bar or something, how likely are you to pick out a prepackaged salad that somebody else made compared to going to a salad bar and making your own? You're going to go to the salad bar. And why are you going to do that? Because you get to pick out the ingredients that you want. And if we give the kids that choice, it's actually a great option for them to be able to eat way more fruit and vegetables than they normally are. So we started giving salad bars away in 2011. To date, we're actually over 3,400 salad bars, which is pretty amazing. We've partnered with letsmove.org, and that organization is part of Michelle Obama's organization. And we now have, it's Let's Move Salad Bars to Schools. And we're one of a couple different organizations that kind of started up with this. When we first started this, Let's Move basically looked at us because the average salad bar, or organization that was giving salad bars away might have given, 20 away total, and we had given about 400 or something away total. So the numbers that we were doing was much bigger, and it was just it just worked out well for us. But instead of saying we wanted to do this all on our own, we opened the doors and said, well, there are all these other organizations that are doing this. Why don't we just do it all together? And so we came up with Let's Move Salad Bars to Schools to be able to kind of get all one source together so we could make sure that all the schools could apply at the same place and be able to have the same kind of access. One of the programs that they have to be involved with is the free and reduced lunch program, to be able to start filling the salad bar, because a lot of misconception comes that we actually fill the salad bar. We don't. We give the salad bar itself away, but we don't give the food to stock it. What we do is we actually offer a training through the lunchbox.org to actually show people how to use the free and reduced lunch program to actually fill those salad bars. So our partner program is Chef Ann Cooper, who's also known as the Renegade Lunch Lady, based out of Boulder, Colorado. Her organization is Food Family Farming, which is actually changing its name pretty soon to the Chef Ann Cooper Foundation. So great organizations. We love being able to show them off as well. And the salad bars is definitely, that's kind of where we started out on our adventure with Whole Kids. The second place is actually the school garden grants. So there's a huge connectivity that happens with gardens and kids. I love seeing it firsthand because it's amazing. I grew up around, like my grandparents helped raise me, and we had victory gardens. I tell people all the time, you should grow a victory garden. And they're like, well, World War II's over. I'm like, no, it's victory over your own health. And really seeing how that starts to work, especially with kids. You can show kids, you can talk to kids as young as 4 years old about huge concepts like sustainability and organics as young as 4 years old, because they're actually putting a seed in the ground, watering it, seeing actually what happens to it, and then later on getting the food out of it as well. So it's a great way to be able to start those big conversations with kids as well. So the garden grant process is basically where we open up the garden grant process between September and October 31st. So September 1st to October 31st. It's a great way. It's actually a $2,000 grant that we give to schools, and we basically give them a check so they can decide to do what they want with it, and they can really kind of adapt it to be able to work for them. There are all kinds of models to be able to do this. As long as they haven't gotten a grant from us before, we'll be able to give it to them. But say if they already have a garden, we will give them money to be able to add on to that garden, or maybe put a cooking kitchen or something onto it. As long as it's directly on the school campus and it's involved in the learning process of the kids, it's definitely one of the heftier garden grants out there. A lot of other organizations are doing them. They're typically around $500, though, not around around $2,000. Our average is about 500 to 600 of these grants we give away per year. So right now we're actually around 2,600 grants, which is pretty amazing. And it's been a very successful program for us. Our partner in this program is Food Corps, which is also another great resource to be able to help out with gardens. So if you check out foodcorps.org, it's a wonderful resource to be able to get out in your gardens as well. So the school garden grants open between September and October. The salad bar grants are actually open all year round. The garden grant, you get a check. The salad bar, you actually get the salad bar itself. So that brings me to my next program, which is the Healthy Teachers Program. And that's the one that I'm actually most excited about. Why? Because that's the one that I promote myself. And the Healthy Teachers Program is a great program that basically looks at the teacher itself. So we're looking at teachers, and this is the only program in Whole Kids that we focus specifically on the teacher. Why are we doing this? Well, they're the biggest mentors for our kids. Being with kids for 7 to 8 hours a day, sometimes kids see their teachers more than they see their parents, just depending on work schedules and stuff. So this is a great way that we can give back to the teachers themselves. And it's also a little bit of, that we have a couple other things going on too. So they're the ones that are able to affect school policy the most as well. So if we're trying to give a salad bar or a garden grant away, they can help make that happen and facilitate that because they're really interested in it. So this program is really starting to address school nutrition as a whole, and we're looking at the teachers first. So these staggering facts that you see in front of you, where 40% of Americans die from circulatory and heart disease, that's the #1 cause of death. This is something that we can completely prevent by food. So really starting to look at this in a new way really kind of changes things up. We look at the standard American diet, which oddly enough abbreviates to the SAD diet. Yes. We're looking at this. This is a little bit old. This is from '98. It's actually changed just a little bit. We actually eat more meat now, or more processed foods and a little less meat in America, but still we'll use these numbers for example. So 51% of the standard American diet is processed food, 42% of that meat, meaning that 7% is left for fruit and vegetables. So if we break that down even further, this is the same chart, just not as fancy. That 7% fruit and vegetable, 40% of that is actually potatoes. Now, if we look at it even further, 50% of that is French fries. So what would you think is the kid's most common eaten vegetable? It's actually a French fry, which is pretty sad, standard American diet. So we need to start looking at this and kind of change it. So that 3 to 4% fruit and vegetable that people are eating, we need to switch that up a little bit. Well, we want to start eating healthier options, but here comes the question is, what is health food? That's a tough thing to be able to talk about. If you talk to one doctor, they might say one thing. But if you have another doctor come to the situation, they're going to start an argument, and they might agree on everything except for the last 10%. But so what do? We basically hired a medical advisory board full of doctors to be able to tell us some of the best practices on what healthy eating is. Now, after getting all these doctors together, we came up with the 3 principles of health. Very simple concepts to be able to talk to teachers about in a way that's very digestible. So they can actually talk to kids in the same way, and it makes sense the first time you hear it. So that's eat a rainbow, eat leafy greens first, and eat as close to nature as possible. So we basically base the Healthy Teachers Program off of these 3 principles to really start the conversation about eating a whole foods diet. And that's a little w, little f. That's not a capital W, capital F. This is not at all an advertisement for Whole Foods Market. We're talking about whole foods literally coming directly from nature. So if you see the apple on the left side of your screen compared to the lollipop on the far right side of the screen, there's maybe 1 drop of that apple, if you're lucky, in the lollipop. Now in between are just various steps of processing, very low processing. But on the left, you can't get any more whole or real than that. But the lollipop on the right is typically made out of an artificial flavor, artificial color, artificial sweetener all at the same time. I always say, what does purple taste like at this moment, right? So we've all seen purple things out there. What is purple? Well, it's supposed to taste like a grape, but it actually doesn't taste like a grape at all. It was designed in a lab to taste like grape, and they put an artificial color and artificial sweetener to it to make purple, which is now oddly enough a flavor, not a color. So in the class, we go into the science of healthy eating as well. It's a 2-hour class. The first half is on basic nutrition. And the second half is on cooking. So on basic nutrition, we covered things like the science of healthy eating, and I like to use lots of teacher slides, like, splitting up everything into, like this whole grain slide here, like the bran, endosperm, and the germ, talking about what a whole grain option is. And a great example of this is like a whole wheat bread or a brown versus white rice. Having the whole on the outside or the bran versus not having it really changes the brown rice to the white rice, and your body digests that differently. You get fiber actually from the outer hull of that as well. So just kind of breaking down simple concepts like this, and then also looking at other bigger concepts, other big concepts, like what a micronutrient is. Most people know what nutrients are, or they might know what macronutrients are, like looking at carbohydrates, proteins, fats. But micronutrients are something that the body needs that you actually get from all kinds of different sources, and those nutrients you need to survive. So really kind of tackling some subjects that are very simple but also very complex at the same time. This slide here in particular looking at what calories are. So calories, really kind of depending on what you want to get your calories from. If you're looking at something like olive oil, which most people think is very healthy for you, which I'm not saying it's bad for you, but it's very calorically dense. It doesn't matter if it's olive oil, coconut oil, canola oil, even 10W40. Don't cook with 10W40, but they all have 400 calories apiece. So if you're looking at 400 calories per tablespoon and you're cooking in a saute pan, you're easily adding 400 to 600 calories to a dish before even adding food into it. So if you're looking at the oil versus something like fried chicken, well, 400 calories of fried chicken really doesn't fill your stomach up much more. If you're eating 400 calories of vegetables, you can go completely full right away from one meal very easily. So in some of these, we show different options, and we never use the word no. I never say, okay, you shouldn't eat this or you shouldn't eat that. I just say, here's some best practices that you can use and utilize, and don't be an angel every single day. It's okay to be able to really switch things up a little bit. Looking at the calorie aspect is really, really good too. So if you're looking at the oil, I'll actually show them how to cook things without using oil at the same time, just to avoid the calories. Eating seasonal is another great thing I love to focus on, because if we think about this, tomatoes are my favorite example of this. Tomatoes in the summertime versus the wintertime, depending on where you live, big dramatic differences. So, we're taping this in Austin, Texas. We get our tomatoes in Texas from Mexico in the middle of the winter. That means that they're getting on a truck and then a train and then 2 more trucks before they get to the grocery store here. That takes a 7-day journey for them to get here. Most people don't realize as soon as you pick a tomato or any fruit or vegetable, it starts to decompose from that moment on. So you're losing, not only are you losing the nutrients and the vitamins, you're also losing the flavor. So that's why so many times we have tomatoes in the middle of the winter and they just don't taste like a tomato. They basically just taste like water. And they taste so unbelievably good in the summertime because we're getting them locally. They're coming literally from the farm, and they can be to the grocery store within 30 minutes, depending on your grocery store, which is a pretty fantastic thing to think of. Now, if we look back to the great-great-grandparents again, they say, well, they ate tomatoes in the wintertime. Well, what do? They canned their tomatoes. So, actually having old school techniques like that is really great. But there you can also buy canned tomatoes, and they can them in the peak of the season to be able to get the full flavor of them as well. So really starting to look at seasonal vegetables and how that can kind of work in your day-to-day eating, and really starting to look at ways to be able to incorporate that. So look at snack foods. Like if you're looking at something like chips, I call these like the foods that you just want to go and kind of grab because they're quick and easy. Well, if you are what you eat, you don't want to be quick, cheap, and easy, do you? So look at things to be able to plan ahead a little bit. Like cutting up a bell pepper and using that for chips is a great thing to be able to do. So how do we start? There are a couple ways to be able to kind of look through this. One of them is planning ahead to avoid that desperation eating. And desperation eating is, again, like grabbing that bag of chips that's in the pantry just because it's very quick and easy. Try to do most of your shopping in the produce department, and do all the hardest work when you get home from the grocery store. So when you get home, put everything away in the pantry, put everything away in the freezer, but leave out your produce. Cut it up into small usable pieces, and then put those in Tupperware or whatever airtight containers in your refrigerator. Think about this. When you go to a restaurant and you order a meal, they're not cutting everything up from scratch as soon as you order it. They have it all cut up in what they call a line, basically, in the restaurant. So you're basically doing the same thing for yourself. If you cut it all up and put it in your refrigerator, you can get home from work, open your refrigerator, and say, what country do I want to go to today? And mix up different ingredients to make different things. If you want to go to Italy, add a little basil and a little bit of garlic. If you want to go to India, well, maybe switch it up to some like dal or lentils, a little bit of garlic and ginger, and just kind of look at it as ways to be able to explore with your food. Batch cook 1 day a week as well, and that's basically making more food than you're actually going to have on that day, so you have it ready for the rest of the week as well. And lastly is just get back in the kitchen. You really want to start exploring a lot more and have, the guts to be able to go into the kitchen and maybe burn a meal every so often. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to have one night that maybe you don't have the best of meals, but you're going to find all these other great meals that you learn to be able to cook and really explore with. So along with those, we do cooking demos. So half of our class, 1 hour, is nutrition. The second half is all on cooking. So we start out with knife skills and showing people how to hold a knife, how to cut an onion, how to dice an onion, how to cut peppers, all kinds of different techniques to make it really quick and easy. We'll typically do recipes that take under 10 minutes so people can do them easily at home. If you actually have them all cut up as well, and it takes even less time. So if you're looking at a 5-minute meal, I always say take that, Rachel Ray. So there are all kinds of other ways to be able to look at cooking. This Mighty Bowl of Goodness is one of the more popular ones where you can take items from each category and, like I said, go to any country you want to. So if you want to go to Italy, use the basil and the oregano. If you're going to Thailand, use lemongrass and ginger or lime leaves, really kind of diversifying kind of what works. I always try to look at budget on this as well too, because when we're talking about healthy teachers, teachers unfortunately are not paid the best, so we need to be able to make sure that they're getting the best bang for their buck. So we use theories like using dried beans to be able to make hummuses. So a tub of hummus typically might take like $5 or something to be able to buy at the grocery store, but I'll show people how to do it for 79 cents for the same amount using a dried bean instead. And then we look for these tips. These tips are really great ways to be able to start incorporating into the class, and there are all kinds of different ones. So right now what I'm doing is I'm actually going around the country and training a lot of different people on how to do this, and I tell them to change the story each time they do it. Just because I'm teaching a class, I might have a story about my grandparents canning in the backyard when I was a kid, but everybody's going to have a completely different story, so I make sure that they include their own stories to be able to make it work for whatever region they're in as well. So moving on from the healthy teachers, we also have other great ways to be able to inspire families. Some of those are available actually on our website. So on our website we have some great nutrition aspects to be able to look at. One of them is actually Better Bites, and Better Bites is a PDF printable form that you can go to our website, wholekidsfoundation.org, and print out little lessons basically. So there might be something like the one that we're showing here is a root vegetable. So it shows kids basically what a root vegetable looks like, and then kind of it gives you a simple recipe that a kid can do. They can either do it, we typically have parents assisting them with, cooking as well. But there are also things like the whole grain slide that I showed. Like it'll actually show the difference between a whole grain and, like what the differences are and what you can actually do with those and different recipes to explore with those. We typically try to do a couple different recipes, one that's good for a much younger kid, one that's for an older kid, and one that's for the parent. So everybody can really start incorporating this into a day-to-day activity. The second one that we actually have is called Scrapkins, and we actually hired one of the guys from the Muppets to do this. It's really funny. It's basically taking all kinds of stuff from around the house and recycling it into kids' activities. Those are all printable on our website as well. And then this is actually one of my favorites. It's for iPhones and Android phones. It's a game called Awesome Eats where you basically drag fruits and vegetables into the right crate and make sure that the grackles don't get them. So again, we're from Austin, Texas. We have grackles coming in all the time from here, and they are always trying to steal our produce. So this is a great game for us where you kind of move the vegetables into the right containers, and it gives you healthy eating tips in between each level. And then later on, you actually go to recycling. So it recycles paper and glass in separate containers too. And the entire time, kids are actually learning about healthy eating at the same time. So some of our support for taking charge, again, you can always go to wholekidsfoundation.org. And my email address is dan.marek@wholefoods.com. That's MAREK at wholefoods.com. One of our partners, again, is foodcorps.org. Foodcorps is a great organization that will help with community gardens and school gardens. They don't have representation in every state yet, but they're getting quite close to it. And they're really great to be able to check out their website to see some of the resources. If you go to our website on the wholekidsfoundation.org, under schools, you can actually see the gardens area too, and that gardens has a way to be able to set up school gardens and gives you instructions that Foodcorps has helped us a lot with to be able to construct those school gardens and really kind of get those active in those local communities. Saladbarstosschools.org, again, is one of those, it's a website that you can go to be able to register for a new salad bar for your school. The great thing about this is actually there's a really high return upon investment on this. So it's something that you can see if you apply for it. Most of the schools actually do get the salad bars. It might take a little bit of time to be able to get that, but you can actually track it. They have a mapping system on their website so you can see where all the salad bars are existing and the ones that have applied for it too. On our website, we actually do that as well. All the salad bars that we've granted and all the gardens we've granted as well. So if you're looking for a volunteer opportunity or maybe even something to be able to bring everybody from work to go help out with something, you can always look at one of the school gardens and say, hey, we'd love to be able to help you out. The summertime is actually the best time to do that. Why? Because school's out. So the gardens, sometimes it's a little harder to be able to maintain those during the summer as well. The edibleschoolyard.org. This is Alice Waters' organization. She's had a birthday yesterday, but she has a wonderful curriculum that's set up on there for kids, for gardens, and for cooking as well. So it's a great way for teachers to start getting involved with those, and actually you can just download the curriculum right from Edible Schoolyard. Lunchbox.org. Again, this is materials typically for food service, and this is a great way to start looking at food and the way we're actually using the free and reduced lunch program. Typically, depending on where you're at, it's about $2.17 per kid per lunch, but a lot of that actually goes to administrative costs. So it shrinks down to a very small amount of money for food costs for actual food. So the lunchbox.org helps kind of show how you can diversify this. And there's a great network. In the same way you can see that I'm sharing all these different foundations information, the lunchbox.org does that with different schools. So you can say, okay, so if you're a school from Austin, Texas, and you know that you want to get a salad bar, but you're not exactly sure how to do it, we might hook you up with the town over, which is Manor, you know, or and say, like, look, they've already done this. They've got the system down. They know how to do it. How about we get your food service directors together so you can talk and figure out the best practices and what worked and what didn't, and where you can actually source local foods from and really start looking at it in a different way. The great things about the salad bars, again, is we actually make sure that the cost ends up being about the same. There's usually a transitional period of about a year to be able to get the cost to be to the same, just because most schools order a year in advance on their free and reduced lunch programs, so it takes sometimes, you know, a little bit of conversion. And we'll show them other tips too, like if you're already ordering peaches that are soaking in high fructose corn syrup, you can rinse off the peaches, you know, to get rid of the high fructose corn syrup and still have the peaches, and at least you're still using what you were using before. On our website at wholefoodsmarket.com, we have great recipes too with printable shopping lists, so you can actually go in even by dietary restrictions. So if somebody in the family has, say, a wheat allergy or a soy allergy, or somebody is a vegetarian, you can go through and sort them all and then print them out. You can print them out to your phones or print them out on paper to be able to find some of these great recipes to start eating a whole foods diet. You know, so those are great ways to be able to start, really start interacting. And then we can also do the stores as well. So if you go to any of the Whole Foods Market stores, we are offering the Healthy Teachers training at the stores. All you have to do is talk to the marketing departments at each of the stores to start up a list for the Healthy Teachers program. And it's a great way to start really kind of interacting with the community and start looking at different ways to explore. Now these classes typically, again, are about 2 hours long. The first hour is always going to be basic nutrition concepts, and the second half is going to be cooking skills. Depending on who's teaching it, you could get anywhere from 3 to 6 recipes that are actually showing right in front of you. You get to taste each one of them as well. And then we send you home with a lot of recipes and resources as well, too. So it's a great way to start interacting with the local communities. And so that's what I've got for you. Again, my name is Dan Marek from Whole Kids Foundation in Austin, Texas. And we'll open it up for any questions you might have.
Great, thanks, Dan. As we're waiting for a couple of questions to come in, I've got a couple.
Great.
You mentioned French fries earlier. We do a lot of surveys with kids across the state, wanting to know how much knowledge they have and self-efficacy and all that sort of thing. One thing about the French fries, you're quite right. We asked the kids where French fries come from, and unfortunately, a lot of them were saying it was the freezer. So they missed that potato somewhere along the way. So when you're talking about your gardens, how very important that is for the kids to see the process.
It really is. I do a game with kids a lot too, where it's just name that fruit or vegetable, and it's literally just taking things from the garden or produce department, showing them what it is, and then asking them. And I'm always surprised at how few number of kids know what a potato looks like. That number goes down even further if you show the greens that are actually attached to the potato as well. So if you actually dig the potatoes out of the ground and you still have the greens attached to the top, most kids have no idea what that is. So they're used to seeing it already gone through some sort of process, and I'm not saying that just cutting up a potato and freezing it is really a bad thing. It's just that there's so many other things on the labels when you read those. I always say if your grandmother can't pronounce it, you probably shouldn't be eating it. And it's amazing how many of those like browners and different things show up on those potatoes too. But yeah, I completely agree with you on that one.
Good. And I'm with you too with the teachers. I mean, my daughter had a salad for the very first time when, my wife, she promotes us the whole time too at home, in 3rd grade. A 3rd grade teacher at the school, I won't say the district, but they're very progressive.
Yeah.
Quite a few years ago now, they provided a salad bar, and she saw her teacher eating from that salad bar. And she went up there and had a salad for the first time. And so it's such a powerful person in the lives, particularly the elementary school kids.
Oh, definitely.
And they do what they see.
Yeah.
You see a teacher walking around with a can of Coke and a bottle of water.
Yeah.
What are they going to do?
I always say that. It's like the teachers can talk to kids about nutrition so much, but if they walk in with like a Diet Coke and a Snickers bar, the entire lesson's lost. I would say, the vision we get of an apple on the teacher's desk, that should be like that, and a glass of water should really come back. I always tell teachers to do an orange, actually. So while they're teaching a class, walking around and peeling an orange, you just get the aroma of that and you get the smell from it. If a teacher does it one time, the next weeks you're going to see all these kids starting to show up with oranges, just because that triggers something in there, and that is such a great role model move to be able to show that great nutrition is happening. You can get that in a snack just as delectable as an orange.
Right, and it is all about the environment. When you walk into a school, you go into the front office, what do you see? If you see a bowl of fruit there, that tells you something about what that school values, I think.
Now, I've never visited the principal's office, but how many times have you seen candy in the principal's office? Yeah.
I wasn't going there.
Right.
But you're right, and that's it, step up. We've got to do what we say, right?
Exactly.
As we go forward there. Now, I know we've got this problem too in Texas. It's a big state. Is a teacher's program available sort of as a traveling tool? Is it for I'm thinking rural schools.
So yeah, there are a couple ways that we're looking at this right now. Right now we're really looking at the places that we have Whole Foods Market in like the actual store. So we're up to 383, I believe, right now. But that was just the easiest way to kind of start this program, because we have representation there that we can train on how to do the program. And we're just getting to the point right now where we have representation in each store to be able to do that. Now, our next steps are going to other organizations and other foundations to be able to start that, and we'll eventually do an online training for this as well. I'll start doing some videos and different things as far as tips that kind of come through it. But right now, at this exact second, it's kind of stuck to where the Whole Foods markets are. But you'll see by the end of the year, we'll actually start diversifying that a little bit. We do have a partner program that does an extended version of this as well. They're called Food Fight, based out of New York City. and they're just at foodfight.org. They're a wonderful organization. They will travel for us a little bit, but we need to have a much bigger kind of, representation. So instead of doing like 30 teachers at a class, we'll do like 140 or something like that. So it's kind of like a whole school at one time. So there are different options to be able to do that. And if there's somebody listening to this that wants healthy teachers to come to their school and they don't have a Whole Foods near them, email me. You can either email me at dan.marek@wholefoods.com or healthy.teachers@wholefoods.com. And if you email me, I'll figure out a way to be able to make something happen in your area. Because even if we can't do it as Whole Kids Foundation, we love working with other organizations and we can make it happen. Or if somebody is on the line here that's actually, I would love to be able to teach that myself, we can start looking at opportunities as far as piloting something like that. Because that's something we're looking into right now but haven't quite explored as far as we need to.
Sure. So how many can you accommodate?
For the classes?
Yeah.
It really depends on the location.
Okay.
We've had classes anywhere from 15. I've done classes for 240 in one class, but we did that in a gymnasium. I had like 10 people helping me to pass out samples and screens and videos. Typically, we try to keep the average size about 35 and below. Yeah. So if we're doing an entire campus or entire school, we'll split them up into 3 groups. Actually, the best time to do these are during personal development days. So it's those days that teachers have that they have to work and all the kids are gone. So think like Columbus Day and stuff. So typically on those personal development days, and they call them different things all over the country, but they'll have to learn about something. So they might do like CPR or something. So this is a great thing to be able to put into that they get a cooking class with, and it's really interactive, and they love being able to switch it up a little bit.
Sure. I'm thinking as you were talking about the gardens, I had a pleasure of visiting, and I'll tell you this school's name, River Place Elementary School.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Fantastic what they've done out there with the gardens and educating the kids coming out, and so on. And, I look at what can be done.
Yeah.
And what folks are doing. It's fantastic.
It's an amazing thing, and there's always something to be done with it too. So you can really start looking at those school gardens and talk to the people and how you can interact with that and really kind of help out. Starting your own garden at home is great, even if you don't have a backyard. You can start like growing herbs in your windowsill or something, and those are great to add to cooking too. Really add a big flavor and really showing off like how that relationship with food can change. And that's something we just need to do, I think, as a whole society. We need to look at our food in a very different way than the way people are looking at it right now.
For sure, for sure. You've given out a lot of grants. Is there a limit to how many grants you can provide?
As much as we raise,
Okay.
So we raise our money for our programs each year. Typically, we have a focus around September, the month of September at the Whole Foods markets, where people at the registers will ask you to either round up your bill for Whole Kids or they'll ask for donations at the register. We do some private funding as well, so we have some other organizations that will actually fund for us that way. So it really just depends on how many grants we can give away each year, depending on how much we raise. So the salad bars and the garden grants are very similar in that way. Healthy Teachers program is a little different because it's a service. So we actually, at the moment that we're teaching it now, the store actually pays for like the food costs and stuff for it. So that's one of the reasons it works really well with our stores right now, and we're kind of looking at other options for that. But so the only thing that stops us at how many we can give away is how much money we raise. We just gave 500 away just 2 months ago. So
yeah. The teachers, do you offer programs for the families, for the kids too?
Yeah, we do. That's actually a very common question we get. So one of the great things that I love about our organization is that we like to focus on one area in particular and do it really, really well. And there are a lot of organizations out there that are teaching kids how to cook, and they're wonderful, and we love them, and I volunteer myself to help them all the time. But through Whole Kids Foundation, we don't focus on a class that teaches kids at the moment, but we do at the stores. So Whole Foods Market offers classes for parents and for kids all the time, but Whole Kids Foundation in particular doesn't have focus on kids, teaching kids how to cook or parents how to cook at the moment. The Healthy Teachers program is designed specifically for teachers as kind of our gift back to teachers, and to also help them be those better mentors and to be able to help with their health costs, all those kinds of things as well. And then they can either, we refer them to somebody like Edible Schoolyard that has a curriculum or something that we can pass on to them to be able to use for them as well. So the Healthy Teachers program is specifically for teachers. I'm not saying that a store wouldn't do the exact same thing for the parents, because it's very relevant information for the parents at the same time. We just usually have them teach it to the teachers first, so the teachers look really smart when they come to them and say, "Hey, I have a question about this." Yes,
that,
exactly. Yes. So, so yes, we do offer it. We just offer it through Whole Foods Market. We don't offer it through Whole Kids Foundation.
Yeah, I think that's important too, because we find with a lot of our trainings that teachers may not have that knowledge base to be comfortable teaching the kids some of these concepts. We particularly see that in the after-school setting.
Yeah.
But a little bit too in the school. So
yeah,
I think that makes a big difference, having that confidence.
I think it does too, and that's one of the great things about this program too, is that it's offered to anybody who influences a child. So it doesn't matter if they're a teacher in the school, a principal, a school bus driver, a food service person, anybody who has a direct effect on a child. We want them to go through this class just so they have a basic understanding of what good nutrition is. And again, it's about best practices, but you don't have to be an angel every day. It's as long as you have the knowledge, you're going to act on that much better.
Yeah, that sort of goes hand in hand. We've got a concept we teach in Catch called Go Slow Whoa.
Yes.
So we've got go foods and slow, more processed as we go up, but there are no foods.
Right, exactly.
As soon as we tell a child that he can't have that chocolate Bavarian cream pie or those French fries,
that's all they want then. Yeah, exactly. Well, I think we're all the same way too. As soon as they say, well, you have to cut back on this or that, that's the one thing you always want to do. So I think that it's best to, I always say approach somebody where they are, but this is kind of extending that. It's like, yeah, we're approaching them where they are, but we're also giving them materials to be able to move from where they are at their own pace. Because if you're just going in and saying, hey, you need to eat this certain way, they're not going to listen to you just because we don't like to be said no to, So giving them the option and the knowledge to be able to make the choice when they want to make it themselves. And who knows, maybe, if this encourages a teacher to eat, one more salad a week or 2 more salads a week, that makes me happy. The more we can get them eating better on a day-to-day basis, that really is the part that makes me happy.
Read this question to you, Dan,
sure.
Because I can't remember it all in one thing. One of our viewers, listeners, should I say, according to the CDC, 22.5% children and adolescents are overweight and obese in Dallas, Texas, which is pretty much what you were talking about a minute ago with your numbers. If schools are doing its part helping children, what is your opinion about helping educate parents about how to shop for healthy foods and prepare healthy lunches?
That is a brilliant question, and that's something that we see all the time. And that's actually one of the reasons when, like you asked me if we offer this for parents, it's like the first thing I say is yes, that's one of those areas, because it's really hard as a teacher to go, okay, I'm going to give you this best practices on nutrition. If you're telling that to a child, well, when they go home, they have to incorporate that into their home life, and sometimes people just don't have those as much. So what I actually love to recommend to people is to go on a grocery store tour. And again, this is not an advertisement for Whole Foods. Go to a grocery store tour anywhere that they're going to offer you a grocery store tour, just to kind of see what there is. It's amazing. Before I started working in grocery stores, I get it. You walk into a grocery store, you grab exactly what you want as quickly as you try to get in and out of that place as quickly as possible. But you don't slow down as much to kind of see what's around there. Exploring your produce department is probably one of the best health things you can do for yourself. And there are a lot of programs out there that will show you how to do a tour like that as well. There's the No Kid Left Behind program. There's a bunch of different programs that actually have these that will actually show you how to do a grocery tour on yourself. So if you're an interested teacher or an interested parent to be able to do this, you can offer it for other parents and really show them how to explore the produce section. If you've gone into a produce section and you don't recognize something, challenge yourself to buy that one thing and figure out how to cook it. There's an amazing thing out there called Google right now, so you can pretty much put anything in there you want to and figure out what to do with it. So if you see something like kohlrabi, or like you see something like endive, and you've never had them before, like those are great things to start exploring with. Worst case scenario, you might lose $1. Best case scenario, you have a meal that the whole family will enjoy. So part of that is exploring not only your grocery stores, but find the local farmers markets near you too, and look at some of those areas too. They work great for low income too. Most farmers markets nowadays, we use WIC programs too. So there's all kinds of different ways to start exploring real food and really start looking at that and exploring what you can do with it. And again, get in the kitchen with those too. So really getting those parents involved in some of those great unique ways is a fun way to start teaching them about nutrition, even on your own, where you're not being abrasive, you're not saying the word no to them ever. What you're doing is showing, here's what you can't find everywhere else. You're not going to find this at the corner store. Having a local market like that is a great thing. So looking for those local farmers markets, the grocery stores that you can actually do a tour at, and really having the guts to explore a little bit in the grocery store and find things that you've never seen there before. And I get getting the same thing over and over again, but there's so many varieties out there, especially at American grocery stores. Why wouldn't you just explore a little bit more and kind of find out there? But just try to keep it in season as much as possible. Try to buy it as locally as you can. Not only does it support your local economy, but it supports yourself and more nutrients and better flavor at the same time.
Yeah. It was interesting when I mentioned to my wife that our special guest for our webinar was going to be Dan Marek. She said, Dan Marek, I know him. So how does my wife know all about what you're doing? You send her emails for cooking and all that sort of thing? She's a parent. So,
right, yeah. I was a healthy eating specialist at our Lamar store, and it's kind of, basically it was my job to go through the store, and I would give tours like I'm talking about, and I do cooking classes, and I do things called supper clubs, and so it was kind of known as the guy out in the community that was like, I was the person waving this flag really, really big and saying, everybody needs to start eating this way, and I'm a very different kind of like a chef. People call me a chef. I never had the culinary background to it, so I guess I'm technically a cook, but I'm a very unique cook or chef, whatever you want to call me in that aspect, because I do things like I'll cook without oil, and I cook without allergens at all. And so it's a very different way of looking at food. I don't use any processed ingredients in any of my cooking at all, and nobody ever notices. They don't ever notice that my meals are vegan. They don't notice there's no oil, and they don't notice there's no processed food. When you even say those three things to people, most people kind of, they're a little like, you do what? I mean, I'm a vegetarian myself. I cook vegan, but I do that just in the local community. Healthy Teachers is not about that. People can eat as much meat as they want to or not eat what they want to. I just show it as an option. Now, why would I do something like that? Let's use the olive oil or the oil as an example. So I don't know about you, but personally, and this is, for the adults, but if you're going to have 120 tablespoons of oil with your meal that you're sauteing, or 400 calories for lunch, what if you skip that? Maybe you could have a glass of wine at the end of the day and not have any guilt about it. So I look at it as a calorie trade-off in that way. I don't count my calories at all. I don't do it like that. But I just look at taking fresh foods, showing people how to use them as much as possible. So that's actually how your wife knows me, is from doing these different events in our communities and really kind of being that oddball chef, if you will, which is, it's great. I love being that. Pardon me. But I love being the oddball chef and really just kind of showing people how to explore with food, because it is just getting back in the kitchen and showing different ways to explore food is really what I love. So,
and it's true. You got to get people excited.
Exactly.
And show them that they can do it. Keep it simple.
Yes, and get them inspired. Yes. Yeah. Inspiration in the kitchen is really kind of where it starts.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Dan, for providing all these opportunities and resources to help get our kids and their families excited about nutritious whole foods. And also thanks so much for your commitment to the schools and the communities that you're working in across the country.
Glad to do it.
Very good. So until our May seminar, everybody, you all take care.